Well, good day, everyone, and thanks for joining us for the Precision Agronomy portion of the 2020 Combine Clinic put on by Western Tractor. A bit of a different format this year, as we certainly appreciate everybody accommodating this virtual clinic. I'm going to start today by going over a few tips and tricks that aren't necessarily tied directly to the combine, but rather some helpful tools that can make combining much smoother when it is finally time to enter the fields for harvest. We all know that our machines love to combine crops that are standing, that they're even, they're dry, there's no green in them. This will help with cutting, this will help with feeding, and this will just help avoid that slugging of the material through the combine. Your machines will thank you for this, and harvest should go a lot better for you guys when we are using some of these tips and tricks here. So the first one I want to talk about today is harvest aids. Just make sure when we're using desiccants and harvest aids, they can be an excellent tool for drying down the crop, making it feed a lot better and cut a lot better. But just make sure that we're using the right products at the right rate at the right time, and that they are indeed registered for the crop that you're using it on. So make sure you talk to your local agronomist or retail to make sure that you do have those things set up and that you have done your due diligence and you're not going to cause any problems. They can be an excellent tool in helping us with harvest. Further to that, fungicides can also be a very helpful tool when used properly as well. So it's not necessarily a blanket statement, but in certain cases, certain diseases and certain crop types can attack the stalks and the stems of the plant, and ultimately weakening them, causing damage, and ultimately causing them to lodge or fall over. So depending on the crop type and the type of the disease that's present in the field, a fungicide applied at the right time can help keep those plants healthy, help keep them strong, which will help them ultimately to better standability and better harvestability as well. One other thing to that is also growth regulators. I know a lot of us have been using them. Most of us have probably heard about them. They too can be a very, very helpful tool when used properly. That'll help our crop stay standing and really help us push for those big yields on irrigated crops. So once again, make sure you talk to your local agronomist or retail to make sure it is indeed registered and safe to use for your specific situation that you have on your farm. Also, further to that as well is your fertility package. Your fertility package is another key thing to making sure your crop stays healthy and stays upright when it comes time to harvest. So careful for fertility planning can help avoid putting lodging prone crops on high fertility fields. Maybe a recent manure application has given a field a really, really high nutrient bank, and we want to maybe try and avoid putting certain crop states such as barley on that. That might just lay down and create some really bad lodging problems for us. Kind of in conjunction with that is also irrigation management. It's also a very, very helpful tool. We want to keep our crops standing upright. We see it every year. Crops have reached physiological maturity, so they're at a point where your plants and your seed are starting to change color. Essentially, your crop is done. It's not going to be growing anymore, and we just feel that need to get out there and put that extra ½ inch on to make sure those heads fill. And that is a good approach. However, more often than not, we do see guys putting that last ½ inch on, and all you're doing is flattening your crop. You're laying it down, you're making it wet, and ultimately you're creating the perfect environment for disease. So just be very careful when you're irrigating near the end of the year. Make sure that it does indeed need it. It's always a good idea, if you can, to try and top up that moisture profile as much as possible before those plants become too heavy. Once your heads and your pods begin to fill, they get top heavy. And I think in a lot of cases, you might find that you may not even need that last irrigation if you manage your irrigation properly. At the end of the year, sometimes those last irrigations can actually cause more harm than good. Also in relation to that is varieties. The varieties we choose can play a very important role when it comes to good standability at harvest. So certain varieties have more lodging resistance, certain ones are solid stem, maybe certain ones are shorter, but variety choice for your given crop type can make a really big impact when it comes to harvest. I also want to touch on a few of the combine settings. So I'm not going to directly speak to how to set the combine or what your rotor speed should be out of your fan speed or anything like that, but I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that the combine settings that you set your combine to, say at 9 in the morning when you first start combining, might not be the same as 4 p.m. in the afternoon. We all know that if you got a lot of acres ahead of you, your harvest window has maybe shrunk a little bit and you need to get going in the morning. Maybe it's not the perfect conditions in the morning. If we all live in southern Alberta here, if you have a really windy, hot, dry day, the conditions are going to be quite a bit different by, say, 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So just be aware of that. Conditions change throughout the day. I encourage you guys to spend some time with some screens. Maybe you've got some drop pans installed, and just check those throughout the day. So first thing in the morning may not be good enough. You might want to do it several times throughout the day. Be aware that the newer Deere combines do have some excellent technology in them that can help you with that, and they can kind of adjust themselves throughout the day. If you do have any more questions about that, please feel free to stop in at any of our dealer locations and talk to one of our sales professionals. They can kind of walk you through what models of combines have that and how it can be useful to you. Another thing, I find that once we get out in the field in the fall, it seems like we're all in a big rush to get our crops in the bin, which is fine. I know it's all like that. We know the neighbors are already going. Maybe they've got already more done than we have, and we feel like we're behind before we even start. I just want to be aware. Make sure you know what's also going out the back of the machine, so that we're not losing revenue or losing dollars an acre out the back. I find that we all do a tremendous job throughout the year being very cost conscious of every dollar and cents that we put in when it comes to input. So when it comes into chemicals and fertility, we're very aware of it. But when harvest comes, we just get out there and we just want to get it done and get it in the bin. And unbeknownst to us, we could potentially be losing money out the back, and it could add up in a hurry too. So just be aware of that. Try not to rush through harvest too much. I mean, enjoy it. We've spent all year growing these crops. Let's spend a little bit of time, excuse me, harvesting and enjoying that part of the season as well. One last note, I just want everyone to be aware of what the fields look like after the combine has gone through the field. So one of the biggest issues we see is chaff and residue management. For dryland farmers, no-till guys that aren't going to be touching that ground after harvest, just be aware that what we see out in the field after the combine has gone through is essentially our seed bed for next spring. So if we do have dense strips of chaff left over, they can present big challenges when trying to seed through them the following spring. Now I know some guys do maybe harrow to try and break up some of that chaff and some of that straw. That can be effective as well. But just be aware that if you have those heavy windrows of chaff, it can lead to poor emergence and essentially a poor stand the next spring. So a poor combining job can actually haunt you for the following year or maybe several years after that. Combines do a much better job obviously when it's warm, and when it's dry they can throw the chaff out there and evenly distribute it. But the better spreading we have, the better your seed bed is going to be, and your drills are going to be able to go through the field. You're going to get a uniform emergence. You're not going to have stage variation, and ultimately it's setting you up for the next year as well. So certain machines do better jobs than other ones, and we do find that the Deere machines do an excellent job of really mulching up that chaff and that straw and doing a really good job of spreading it. Sometimes the next spring you can almost go out and tell who has what kind of combine the next spring when you see the chaff strips left in the field. So one more thing to be aware of. So that is all I had for everyone today. Just a brief kind of reminder and once through. I know most of us are already aware of the things I talked about today, but if nothing else, maybe it's just a reminder. It gets the wheels turning in regards to a few things that aren't necessarily tied directly to the combine. So if you do have any questions or concerns, please feel free to stop in at any one of our stores as well. We do have agronomists on site. We do have precision ag specialists as where we do offer packages and services that can help you guys out with all of these needs. So thanks for tuning in, and happy harvesting.
To access Operations Center, you're going to log into your My John Deere account and access the Operations Center icon on your main startup page. This is how you access the web version. There is also the app version of Operations Center that can be downloaded on your Apple or Android devices. When we get into our startup page of Operations Center, we're going to see this map view to start things off. I'm going to be using a test farm that we work with in Saskatchewan to show you an example of how we can work through Operations Center today. Initially, you're going to notice these fields that are listed in front of me in the map view. Here, you're going to see the last work type that was completed on all of these fields that are loaded into your Operations Center. The legend on the bottom left here is going to indicate that seeding is in green, as well as application is in blue. And when an operation for harvest is completed or tillage, you're going to see an orange or brown different indication as well. You'll notice some of the tabs here with the main functions are listed up along the top. This includes the map that you're currently on, as well as your options through Setup, Plan, Analyze, and some additional options under More. You also will notice here on the left side a Equipment tab as well as a Fields tab. Let's take a look at the Equipment tab. Here's where you're going to be able to see all of your added equipment in Operations Center. If you click on these drop downs, you're going to be able to see the models of the equipment and the name that you've titled it as well. You also can add competitive equipment as a custom added option. If you'd like to add more equipment here, this plus button is going to allow you to add that pin, name, make, machine, as well as the model. Similarly, the Fields tab is going to show all of the fields that you have added into Operations Center as well. Here you're going to be able to see them color-coded according to the most recent operation, and when you select one of these, it's going to bring that field up on your map. For example, when this is selected at Northeast 5 pivot, you're going to see the area of that field as well as the crop that was planted on that field, which is the most recent operation on that field. Down below, you're going to see this Details button. If you select this, you're going to be able to get more information on that field, including an option to go to Field Analyzer, which we'll touch on more later, as well as your land operations to edit and create and archive your locations using your land tool. You can also see your prescriptions and manage prescriptions, or merge and unmerge your fields. You can go directly to Field Analyzer from this field with this icon here below as well, or select directions to this field or manage this field directly in land using these icons below. If you're partnered with more than one organization, you're going to be able to select these organizations with this drop down in the top right corner. There's also a notifications tab here where you're going to be able to see notifications that are coming off as alerts from your equipment. And then it's important to note this assistance tab as well. Here is where you're going to be able to see how-to videos, contact support, help documentation, or submit feedback, which is reviewed frequently by our Operations Center team. I would like to point out this Release Notes tab that is going to show you when changes are made in Operations Center. Things do change very quickly, so it is important to keep up to date with these things that have changed over the last few months. If you find something new in Operations Center that you're not used to, this is the first place to check for the changes that have been made and instructions on how to use them properly. An example here is updates to Agrian, our prescription creator, that is released on April 21st. If you'd like to keep up to date on these updates, you can select the Subscribe to Updates button here, where you're going to enter your email and click on in order to get these email updates whenever changes are made to Operations Center. As I mentioned earlier, our functions of Operations Center have been broken into 3 key tabs. Those are Setup, Plan, and Analyze. We're going to take a closer look at the Setup tab here and some of the options that you have within it. This includes your connections, where you can discover and manage your software connections with different companies. This could include a financial planning company or an agronomist, in ways that you can work with their company and access data easily back and forth. Here you can manage geofences and curfews for your equipment. So you can set your different curfews and geofences and monitor your timelines of your equipment here. Land, as we discussed earlier, can also be accessed through the Setup tab. We also can manage your varieties, chemicals, fertilizers, and your tank mixes through your products. You can manage your setup files and create them and send them to your displays, as well as manage your staff, partners, and operators through your team. Lastly, you can manage your terminal assignments and your settings here too. When you enter into Team Manager here, you're going to be able to see all of your partners, operators, and staff that you have added access into your organization. Let's show an example when you add someone to your team. Here is where you're going to select in this button to add a staff member, add a partner, or add an operator to your team. Let's add a partner. When you add a partner, you're going to grant access to your partner or request access from a partner. Here, we're going to grant access to them to our organization. I'm just going to put in a test email to do this first. Here, you can see where you're going to be granting access. There are multiple levels of access that you can grant to someone who is a partner with your organization. An example of a partner is an agronomist that might need access to your field data in order to generate reports for you and create prescriptions. Here is their ability to view equipment. There are the 3 different access levels that you can upgrade or downgrade here on the right side. 3, meaning they have access to all of these things, 1 being the lowest level of access. So with the 1 level, they are going to only be able to view the equipment details, including location, driving directions, alerts, and offsets, as well as edit their equipment on level 2, and then manage the equipment on level 3. Similarly, you're going to allow remote display access here and setup files, as well as organization management too, where they can add partners like we're doing now, or manage the staff in the organization depending on their access level. Another option is locations. So they're going to be able to view locations, analyze the product data, manage the locations and data depending on their level of access. And then work, view the work and crop plans as well, or manage the work and crop plans. And then lastly is financials. When you grant the levels of access here, it is going to be sent off to this individual, and that will be assigned as a partner if the permissions are granted to the organization. When you hit finish, this partner will then show up in your list of access partners. You can similarly add someone as an operator to your organization or add a staff member if you want to grant them more access as well. So they may also perform operations as an operator too, as well as being a staff member in the org. Now we're going to go over the Plan tab. On this tab, there are 4 options. Your Agri and Prescription Creator, where you can make your agronomic recommendations for field work. Crop Planner, which lets you pre-plan your crops for the season. Maintenance Planner, which lets you plan your equipment maintenance intervals and repairs. And your Work Planner, which is new this year and allows you to plan the work to send it to your equipment. First, we're going to go over Work Planner. Work Planner is a new feature that was added this year to help plan the work operations that you're going to be doing in your fields before you enter into your fields for the season. We're going to show an example here of what planning for harvest looks like. You can see these tabs that are listed at the top are going to show each of your steps of production. Here, under harvest, you're going to see any planned work that you've already created. We do have an example here of some planned canola harvest, as well as the acres, the crop, and the variety listed below. If you want to plan a new operation, you select the Plan Harvest button at the top. It's going to have 3 simple steps to walk you through planning this work. First, you're going to select the crop that you'd like to plan, and then the variety as well. You can add more details if you'd like, including the machine that will be used to harvest, and the operator if you'd like to include them on the list. You can include a work order number, as well as work instructions too.
When you've completed that, you can hit Next at the bottom right, and it will take you to selecting the fields that you'd like to apply this to. When you select fields, you can select multiple that you'd like to be harvesting this on, and then hit Next. Here it's going to show your field details. If there are guidance tracks available, you can select your guidance tracks too. When you hit Save, it will show up in your list here as well with those fields that you've included. If you'd like to edit multiple at a time, the feature has been added that you can batch edit this equipment, including the crop and variety, equipment and people applied to it, work orders, work instructions, or guidance tracks as well. Once you've completed it, you hit Send to Equipment, and you're going to be able to see this jump up as well. To show you what Work Planner looks like as you enter the field, we're going to be using the Display and Command Arm Simulator. Through this, when you select this option in your My John Deere, you're going to be able to simulate what different operations look like on different equipment in your field. This is a good chance for you to familiarize yourself or refresh yourself on equipment before you're entering into an operation if you feel like you're a little rusty. So this should be available to you through your My John Deere if you want to play around with it. Here, I have it set up for an S700 combine with the field that we already talked about earlier. You'll see that as you're entering into the field here, you should get your work plan to pop up. I want you to imagine here that we just came from another field, this North 40. This was the previous work that was done. As you enter the field here and we start moving forward, you should be able to see this planned work for your current position. So we were not even showing the guidance lines beforehand, and this recognized that we entered this field beforehand as well. So here it's showing that operation type that we put in previously, that field size, 278 acres, your client and farm, as well as your crop and variety and the work order number that you put in too. If you go into your work details on this, you're going to show the instructions that we'd entered. So that start harvest from east, that harvesting canola, so what the variety is here as well, that boundary, and then your operators. If something changes before the day that you are actually going to be harvesting or planning any other operations, you can also edit these as you're entering the field. So let's say you run out of a certain variety and you want to change it to another variety that you'll be using on that day. Here you can select that, clear that selection, and select another variety instead. Here we have 233P as one of our other options. You can add another variety from scratch too if you'd like to enter it into the display like you normally would. You can also add in your operator name here from your list of operators or add a new operator as well. Once you start harvesting and hit OK, this is going to change your client, farm, and field here to that information that you'd saved previously. This will show up again as you exit and enter the field, and it will resume your work as well automatically. It'll give you the option if you'd like to start new work, you can do that as well. The next tab that we're going to go over is the Analyze tab. In this tab, you're going to be able to analyze and report on your completed work across multiple fields through your Analyze tab itself. Through Field Analyzer, you're going to be looking at your completed work, as well as Field Analyzer Beta, which is the newest version. What we'll go through is going to analyze your field side by side and the yields on your field too. Machine Analyzer is going to analyze your equipment across your fleet, as well as Machine Reports can generate reports based off of your fuel utilization and maintenance. We're going to go into Field Analyzer here first. When we get into our Analyze It tab here, you can see that there is Field Analyzer and there's Field Analyzer Beta. The difference between these two is Field Analyzer is our original analysis tool to look at your field's yields as well as other components and compare them across the field. Field Analyzer Beta is our newest version of this tool. The only reason that we have the beta version on there is because we are continuously adding new features and working on this model to make it better every day. I'm going to start with Field Analyzer itself here and just give you an overview of what the Field Analyzer tool looks like. When you select the tool, you're going to have the option at the top here to select your field. Here, I'm going to select the field that I'm looking for, and then when you look here, it's going to show your most recent application that's been done on that field. In this case, it was an application. I'm going to select our wheat durum harvest from 2020 to give you guys an example. When you select the operation that was done on that field, you can then select the layer that you'd like to view. Here you can see your dry yield, your contour of your dry yield, your wet weight, your moisture, or your harvest speed through that field. On the left side here is your legend that's going to indicate what percentage of those colors is attributed to that layer. For example, here, you're going to see that approximately 20%, 27% of your yield is around 48 bushels an acre. That is going to be shown by that yellow color throughout the field. You have more control over this legend as we get into our Field Analyzer Beta option, and I will show you that in a bit. Here on the left side, we're going to see our agronomic data. You can see that you're going to have your total dry yield here, as well as your average dry yield, your average moisture, your average speed, your area worked, your wet weight, and your average wet weight. Also listed below is a timeline from that year that you've selected of all of the operations that have happened throughout your season. Here you can see seeding and then all of the different applications that occurred, as well as your harvest at the end of the year. If you want to get more insights into the field, you can use the simple compare tool above here. This is going to bring up a duplicate of the map that you're seeing and let you control them separately. On the right side here, let's take a look at one of the other layers side by side. For example, moisture. Now, if we look at these maps side by side, you can notice here that this area in the middle that we're going to be seeing a lower yield also had a higher moisture. As it's indicated by these green colors here at the top, somewhere between 10 to 11% moisture is what was indicated in here. We also can look at this and take a look at harvest speed. When we take a look at our harvest speeds, we can see that in that part of the field, we also traveled significantly lower. If we want to get a better idea of this and actually analyze that part of the field, we can go into our Field Analyzer Beta. When I go back to the overview, I can either click this Field Analyzer Beta button here to go directly into Field Analyzer Beta with this field remaining, or I can select it from our tab above as I showed here. I'm going to go straight to Field Analyzer Beta. Here, it's going to give you a few different ideas on viewing higher resolution maps, analyzing custom areas, customizing your map legends, and others to show exactly what the difference is between Field Analyzer Beta and just Field Analyzer. When you select Continue to Beta, it's going to load this field into your beta operation with significantly more detail than it shows in just regular Field Analyzer. I'm going to select the operation from the left side here again to show what the difference is between these two. Here you can see our default legend was a little bit different, so that's going to show it a little bit differently than what we saw before. As it's loading down below, I'll show you guys a couple of the features that we can do with Field Analyzer Beta. Here, when you see your legend on the side, you're going to be able to see this edit button that's down below. When you click on that, you can actually edit your legends by adding more or less range of where your legend is going to be, what more and less of the colors that it's going to be distributed across. Here, you can distribute evenly or restore your defaults for this map, or you can go in and you can actually save this as a template too. So if you wanted to be able to come back and save this range as a template, so you can look at both maps on the exact same legend and scale. So if you have multiple fields, let's say you have two different fields that you have durum on, and you want to use the same legend to put them side by side and compare their yields, you can save that legend as a template, select the breakpoints of it, hit next, name this, hit save, and that's going to be a template that you can choose from. Now it's drawn this drop-down list so that when you go to select it next time, it's going to be very easy to do. So when I hit save here, it's going to readjust the legend that's being used on this map. Once this legend is saved, it's going to adjust that map accordingly to the colors that are on that map as well. You can see that we're going to be seeing that same area in the center of the field that's showing the variation in yield. However, with the Field Analyzer Beta option, we can break it down into a specific area and analyze just that. You'll notice that instead of on the left side, where the agronomic data was listed before, it's actually shown below here, where we can see the dates as well as your work totals and your varieties below. When I select a specific area of the field, let's say this strip right here where we're noticing a lower yield, it's going to isolate that and just look at that data. This is going to load down below and showcase exactly what you're seeing in this area in a comparison to the overall field totals too. So we can see here that when we have our selected versus our full operation, we can compare a side-by-side of what that yield looked like compared to our total bushels per acre. In this area, compared to our average bushels an acre, it's only 1 bushel an acre lower than the average, although this average does include these edges around sloughs as well. We can see that the moisture was about 0.4% higher, and our wet weight was a little bit lower as well. If we want to remember this and see this total, so we have our 46 bushels an acre, we can compare it without looking at these areas that we had in sloughs as well, if we want to just move this selected area over to another region of the field. 46 bushels an acre was in here, where we can compare it here as well to 53 bushels an acre. Now that shows a little bit more of a difference compared to that average straight runs in the field versus where those areas were around your sloughs. Similarly, we can do this on the other side, where we're going to see 54 bushels an acre compared to that 46. If you want to compare the same way we did in Field Analyzer and show multiple operations, that's done on the left side here. I'm going to clear our area that we're analyzing first and select another operation, such as our seeding in 2020. When you have these two operations, it's actually going to pull up the data from both of them side by side as well. That's just for the data. If you want to compare them side by side here, you can see that it was seeded the same as one layer of applied rate. If you want to compare this to your harvest of your same year and show your wet weight, varieties, speed, and moisture again, that's how you're going to do it, by selecting that same operation side by side. You can still use this selection tool when you're doing this as well. So if I wanted to select the same region, I can show on both maps what that region is going to be like. It will take a moment to load when there's two maps and there's a lot of data visual. Below, though, it will show what each of those are yielding underneath in a side-by-side comparison. You can see here too, there is this data analysis tab. This means that you could select your moisture percentage, and it's going to show your yields at each of those percentages if you want to have a breakdown of these two things side by side. So where your moisture was at that 10.5 to 11 range, you can see that your yield was around 44.48 bushels an acre. As it was around that 11 to 11.7 range, you're going to be around 44 bushels an acre. And above 11.7, you are yielding 38 bushels an acre. As we scroll down, we can see those lower moisture points are where we were getting our higher yields. If you select one of these on the map or multiple, it's only going to highlight those areas. So we can see side by side, highlighting these areas where our moistures were the highest. That is going to align very significantly with this region in the center of the field, as long as along the edges of the sloughs as well. Another component of the Analyze tab that I want to dive into is your Machine Analyzer. This is going to allow you to compare your different machines between their idle time, their running time, and their transport times as well. I'm going to show an example of what the combine harvesting would look like for last year. So you can see on this left side, you have your performance view, as well as your machine or organization, and then the date range that you'd like to look at. I'm going to be looking at last year, just to get an idea of the combine harvesting last fall. Here you could select multiple machines to show them side by side if you'd like. If you do have more than one combine, these will be all shown side by side to compare your efficiencies. When you look at what it's going to be showing here, it has your overall utilization of this machine, where the green is in a working percent, which is 77% working. The gray is 11%, which would be here, and your idle is in orange, and that is 13% idle. If you're going to understand your efficiencies of your machine, this is a good way to do so. You can customize these views as well and add a new one if you'd like to see some more details too. There are a lot of different details that you can see on your machines, whether it's your pin model and year, whether it's agronomic information like productivity, so your time in that crop, your engine hours, your fuel or DEF utilization, your engine load, your auto track usage, as well as precision ag technology usage too, which in harvest conditions can be your auto maintain, harvest smart usage as well. It also will show engine metrics, machine metrics, harvester usage, control technology, and then there's an option for construction and forestry machines if you have one of those. When you name this and you save it, you're going to be able to list it as one of these drop-down options in here. If you'd like to see, this is an example of a technology usage where it's showing the amount of percentage of time that AutoTrack was being used. If you'd like to take this information and export it, there is an option here as well that will export this to either a PDF or an Excel file. So I'm going to start with a bit of a Combine Advisor package overview here. There are kind of three portions that come with our Combine Advisor package. There is our set portion, as well as our optimizing portion and our automate, which is the primary part of the package. So with setting, that is where you set your harvest setup. With optimize, that's where you're going to be looking at vision track and optimizing your performance. And through automation is where you're going to be looking at Harvest Smart, active terrain adjustment, active vision cameras, as well as your auto maintain. So here you can see our previous model of our Combine Advisor package was called Integrated Combine Adjustment 2, ICA2, and our newest version is just simply called Combine Advisor. This is to avoid any confusion and to simplify the entire package itself. These portions are going to be what contains all of the automated functions within this package. So what is Combine Advisor? As I said before, it's containing those automation portions as well as your optimization. Here, we're going to see our optimizing performance portion, as well as our Harvest Smart, active terrain adjustment, and our auto maintain. When we look a little bit about the journey and the history here of where harvest automation has come from, we can start by looking at 2003 here, where we had our combine adjustment guides, where you'd walk through and it'd have recommended settings for different conditions. Then in 2013, the Go Harvest app was introduced as our digital interactive app that would recommend adjustments as well. That was for setting your combine manually. Here, we have our optimize function. This is where Interactive Combine Advisor 1 came in, and we were able to start doing those interactive combine adjustments. Then we started introducing automation in 2018 with our ICA2, which includes those auto maintain settings and grain quality cameras, as well as remote view and adjust, where you're able to send adjustments to the cab remotely. Then in model year 20 is where we started to bring that entire package together of automation. We were able to include our Harvest Smart, our auto maintain, and our active terrain adjustment into one combination package. In model year 21, a couple updates have been made to that, but the most significant changes were made in model year 20 as we brought all of this setting functions where we manually were previously adjusting the combine into an automated format. So what does this look like, the model year 18-19 to that model year 20? Some of you might be familiar with this ICA2 run page here on the left. Here you can see your current settings, your priorities, your automation status, as well as your optimization and your automation on the right side. With this change to Combine Advisor here in model year 20, you're going to see a little bit of a difference, but a very similar setup as before. You can see those current settings where you have your default and then your settings currently being run below, as well as your automation statuses and your optimized performance. On the right side, the largest difference that you'll notice here is with these automations for Harvest Smart, Active Terrain Adjustment, and Auto Maintain. Instead of a spinning wheel that continually spins while it's being adjusted, you're able to see your progress to your target. So as you're waiting for a target to be set, you're going to see that bar slowly moving across. There are a couple other things that have been changed. These priorities have changed now through our optimized performance function, and that's something I'm going to show you next. So when we select optimized performance, previously you'd see these areas to improve. That would be your grain losses, your grain quality, your straw quality, and excess tailings. You were able to set these as a priority, which one you'd like to set as your highest priority, and then so on. The challenge with this is that it would only consider between these two priorities, and then there could be some conflicting priorities in between the rest. So as you were looking at grain loss, your second priority would be broken grain, but as your conditions change, that wouldn't vary as much and you'd have to select your new tabs. This optimized performance function now allows you to go into these individual performance issues. So separator losses, shoe losses, unthreshed losses, as well as broken grain, light material and foreign material, unthreshed material, straw quality, and excess tailings. As you select one of these, it's going to give you the options of mild, medium, or of a moderate issue, and you're going to be able to choose what you'd see this issue as. Then it will go give you recommended solutions on the right side. The other large change that we saw from previous years to our model year 20 is the Harvest Smart logic. So this logic changed from being a target pressure to now an engine power target. You can see that here on the previous model year 18 and 19 settings, you have your target pressure from a min to a max, and you're going to that to set where you'd like your rotor pressure to be. Here on the right side is what our new format looks like. This is a percentage of your engine power instead. Your aggressiveness and your speed limit are going to be the same, but the largest issue is that you're no longer looking at that target of your rotor pressure, but rather your engine power target. What this is going to do with the rotor pressure is show that with that rotor pressure, you're reacting as it actively comes into the combine. You're looking to be a little bit more forward-looking as your crop conditions change. So as your engine power starts to decrease, your speed is going to increase. Whereas rotor pressure, you'd see a sudden decrease in your rotor pressure, and then your speed would jump up. It is a lot more of a gradual increase, and this logic has improved over the last year. Something important to note with all of this is that in model year 21, as of January this year, this Combine Advisor package, this new update, has been able to be compatible to your model year 18 and model year 19 S700 machines. So this is important to note that if you do have an S700 and you previously were running ICA or ICA2 here, you're going to be able to update your model year 18 and 19 machine to this new version of the software package. So the first thing that I'd like to kind of highlight here when we get into Combine Advisor is our setup. So before I jump into the simulator here and start showing what the difference is between all of these components of our optimization and automation functions, I wanted to highlight a little bit of the setup order that we like to follow. The first thing that we do like to do is go into this optimized performance. This is going to allow you to manually set your settings and get a better idea of what you'd like your machine to start off at when it's optimized before we put our automation settings on. Next, we want to set our performance target. You want to make sure that when you set your performance target, you're in a very homogeneous part of your field. So you want to make sure that it's going to be good standing crop and it's a good sample to be setting your target to. If you're setting it in an area that is a poor sample, if you have lodged crop or if you have poor crop in the area that you're setting and you're going to be slowing down or speeding up, then that target's going to be an inaccurate target that's used for the rest of that field and for the rest of that day. So make sure that when you are setting that performance target, you've been harvesting for a couple minutes already and you're in a good part of the field to use as your target for the rest of your settings. Then after you do get that performance target and your auto maintain set, that is when you can start your Harvest Smart and your active terrain adjustment as well. We're going to go through our Combine Advisor systems today and how they all work together. First, we are going to start off with optimizing performance. This is going to help optimize the combine and get your settings set properly before we get into our other automation systems that are available, including Auto Maintain, Harvest Smart, and Active Terrain Adjustment. So here we're going to start with our harvest optimization through optimizing performance. Something I want to highlight before we get into this is what optimizing performance is. So here you can see we start with our optimized performance, where you're going to be given a recommendation that the driver will choose from the list. Then an adjustment will be recommended and made, and then sensor inputs will indicate what that difference was to the optimized performance menu once again. The user will also have to evaluate the performance of that adjustment and perhaps detect another issue, where the driver will report that once again into your optimized performance. Essentially, you're detecting what's going on in your machine, and you're going to be manually inputting that information into your optimized performance tab. This is important to highlight because there is operator input into this cycle. Next, we will talk about auto maintain, and the reason I wanted to highlight what optimized performance is when we look at auto maintain, recommendations are made, adjustments are made, new images or issues are present, and that brings it back to the menu. And then through the loss and tailing sensors, grain and tailings cameras, and automated settings, an evaluation will be made by the machine to see if that adjustment resolved your issue. Then that goes back into your auto maintain where another recommendation is made. Through all of this process, there is no operator input other than viewing those images as they're coming into the machine and reviewing the adjustments that have been made by the machine automatically. That is where Auto Maintain compares to our Optimized Performance tab. Here we're going to go into our Optimized Performance. You can see on the left side, the list of performance issues are going to be ranging from separator losses, shoe losses, down to your straw quality and your excess tailings. Let's select one of these to report it as an issue. For example, heavy foreign material that you can notice on your cameras. When you see that heavy foreign material, let's say you're going to select it as a moderate issue. Here, your current settings are listed above and your recommended settings are shown below. In this case, it wants to recommend decreasing your sieve. If you select the options here on these arrows, you're going to have other options that could also potentially remove your heavy foreign material and reduce that in your sample. If you are going to apply this, all you have to do is select apply and it will change these current settings to include this setting now. If you don't want to apply it, you can simply select stop and it won't make that change. Let's try one for broken grain. Let's say we have moderate broken grain in our tank and it's recommending that we increase our threshing clearance. If I hit apply, it's going to apply the solution and tell you to wait as it's applying. The adjustment is complete, and then you'll notice that our number has gone up to 13 here. Once we have optimized the performance of our machine, we're going to take a look at our setting our performance target and our auto maintain. When we select our set performance target, we're going to see this acquire new performance target notification come up. It notifies us that our existing targets are going to be updated and allows us to select OK to set that new target. When we select OK, it's going to show this acquiring below. A couple of things to note with this setting your target is that when you press it, you want to press it when you're satisfied with your combine's performance. So make sure that you're setting it accordingly to what you've optimized already, like we walked through. When your conditions are changing throughout the day, you can adjust the settings without changing that performance target as well. But if a bad target is set, like I said, in uneven crop, or if a machine is not optimized to its expectation, your auto maintain is going to maintain a bad target. Some of the settings that performance target are going to set and save are going to be your Harvest Smart targets, your Harvest Smart calibration, your auto maintain grain loss, as well as your auto maintain grain quality, and your grain loss target on your PDU bars. Your targets can be saved for up to 5 of them, one for each of their supported crop types, as well as your target expires after 30 days. The operator is going to get a warning when your targets are older than 12 days, so setting the performance target is going to define the level of all of the parameters that auto maintain is taking into account. That is why this is important. So setting that target is going to calibrate your sensors, set your Harvest Smart targets, and define your auto maintain targets as well. We've already gone through our optimizing performance here, and now we're going to go through auto maintain. So what auto maintain does is it's going to control, based on your camera images and your grain loss sensors, the following things: your threshing speed, your concave clearance, your cleaning fan speed, your chaffer opening, and your sieve opening. Next, we're going to go into our details on auto maintain. First, though, I want to mention a few things about auto maintain that are important, including creating a custom preset for your best performance. Because auto maintain optimizes based on a default preset, you want to make sure that you do set a preset yourself for the best auto maintain performance. How you can create that preset is going into your harvest settings and entering the setting that best fits to your region. Here, you're going to set your settings for your threshing speed, your clearance, your cleaning fan, your chaffer clearance, and your sieve clearance, as well as your loss monitor performance target. Then you can press the bar in the top of that harvest settings page and click on Save Preset. That is going to be down at below. You can save the name of your preset as well as your threshing conditions and your straw conditions that you're going to be in. It will give you a preview of your settings, and you will be able to easily access these later. When you're in your Combine Advisor run page and you select next to your Auto Maintain, it's going to bring up your Auto Maintain settings. Here, you're going to see your response aggressiveness as well as your issue sensitivity. Response aggressiveness is the response time and how much time it takes to trigger a reaction after a problem is detected. Your issue sensitivity is how severe that problem needs to be in order to trigger a reaction. This is going to help you adjust accordingly to your conditions and to how sensitive you want this automatic system to be. Auto Maintain uses your grain quality cameras as well. I want to highlight what a grain quality camera would look like in a real condition. These will toggle the cover. If you select the on and off here, it's going to toggle those color overlays of the video stream and allow them to see how the machine is analyzing your grain and images. When you're operated in an unsupported crop type, this view grain analysis is going to be disabled. The grain analysis is going to show the different colors for the following things. Orange is going to be broken kernels. Purple will be unthreshed kernels. Blue or green will be light kernels, and yellow will be your heavy material. This is going to be indicated on your screen and what's going to be used to make your adjustments. On your camera run page module, there's a choice between 1, your grain, or 2, your tailings camera. Only one camera is going to be able to be viewed per run page. If 2 are placed on the same run page, no image is going to be seen. See on the right side here. Through Auto Maintain, you also are going to be able to see your performance history. Here, performance graphs are shown to indicate what changes have been made over the last 30 minutes. You can see the quality as well as your foreign material, and your losses are indicated on these graphs in different colors. So an adjustment is made and you can see the changes to that foreign material or quality. These graphs are going to be available for both your grain quality and your performance, and you can tap on them to open a more detailed view. If you select the Active button, it's going to show you a history of all of the adjustments that are going to be made. If you'd like to undo the adjustment or get more details, you can select it and it will undo that adjustment as well. They are time-stamped as well, so you can know the duration and timeline of when they were occurring. Now that we've gone through optimizing our performance as well as auto maintain, we're going to go into Harvest Smart, which is going to control your ground speed based on your rotor target pressure and keep a constant feed rate. So from our Harvest Smart main page, when you select beside your Harvest Smart toggle button, you're going to see your main settings. Here is where this engine power target that I mentioned before is going to be shown, as well as your speed limit, your aggressiveness, and then your ability to manage with your grain loss. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on each of these and showcase a little bit of what these settings should look like. So when we look at our Harvest Smart display navigation, I mentioned that engine power target, that ground speed, that aggressiveness, and those performance targets. What your engine power target is going to do is set that engine load target that Harvest Smart is going to ideally operate at. Your ground speed is going to set that maximum allowable ground speed for Harvest Smart to operate at in ideal conditions. Aggressiveness is going to allow you to adjust how quickly that system is going to respond to your changes in your vision track loss or your threshing system load. Your performance targets are going to manage your target with your grain loss as well, which I'll go into more detail on. So first off, I want to showcase this engine power target. Here, you're going to see it's set at 90%. So I wanted to recommend that in consistent conditions, we want to be setting that engine power target to about 80 to 90% ideally. If you're in changing or high biomass conditions, you want to be a little bit lower at 75 to 85%. And in your tough feeding conditions or down crop, probably about 70 to 80% is where you want that engine power target to be. If you are running a draper header, you can run about 5% higher on any of those recommendations due to better feeding. But an engine power target above 95% is not going to be recommended. If that target is set too high and in difficult conditions, the machine will overreact, or if it's set too low, you will not reach the max capacity. So it's important to hit that perfect range in order to get your maximum performance out of your Harvest Smart. With these recommendations, it's also good to note that if you have a skilled operator in these tougher conditions, you're going to be able to operate in these tougher conditions, perhaps at a higher engine power target too. Next, we'll see our ground speed. This is selected on the right side of this menu here. With your ground speed, you want to set your max speed to about 1.5 to 2 miles an hour over what you think your expected average speed is going to be harvesting in field. If you'd like to harvest at about 4.5 to 5 miles an hour, you want to set your max speed to 6.5 miles an hour. When you set an unrealistic maximum speed, Harvest Smart's going to try to achieve that speed, and when the engine load is going to allow it. That's going to result in kind of a nervous machine behavior due to those changing speeds. Underneath of that is your aggressiveness setting. Similar to what we saw in our auto maintain settings, your response aggressiveness is going to be set on a scale of 1 to 5. This is going to be determined during your calibration, and your adjustment to this shouldn't be needed. Essentially, a higher aggressiveness is going to equal less operator comfort, but higher productivity, and a lower aggressiveness is going to equal more operator comfort, but lower productivity. Essentially, this acceleration rate is controlling how fast that system is reacting to your changes in that pressure, as well as that engine power target. The last thing to note with Harvest Smart settings is you're managing your target with grain loss. So when Harvest Smart is operated with this target checked, your engine load target is going to be updated if your grain loss target is not achieved. So consistently high losses will make lower power targets, and consistently low losses will make higher power targets. Auto Maintain and Harvest Smart also are working together. If Auto Maintain is enabled, Harvest Smart's going to use your Auto Maintain targets and work with your Auto Maintain to identify if your engine load target needs to be modified. when auto maintain is installed, it always tries to solve the loss issue first. Speed is the very last setting to be reduced because of your lower productivity. Without auto maintain, Harvest Smart will react directly to the grain loss. So if losses are outside that tolerance. Now that we've gone through our Combine Advisor systems for optimizing performance, Auto Maintain, and Harvest Smart, we're going to touch on Active Terrain Adjustment. Active Terrain Adjustment is a system that's going to enhance your grain quality and reduce your grain losses when you're harvesting on hills. This feature is going to automatically adjust the combine's sieve and chaffer openings and carefully control the cleaning fan speed, as well as stabilizing your tailings levels and ensuring a clean grain tank sample. You can see here your uphill and downhill sensitivity are going to be adjusted on a scale of 1 to 9. When you're adjusting the sensitivities, your uphill sensitivity is going to accelerate or decelerate your system's reaction to your vehicle pitch when you're harvesting uphill. That's going to help reduce your grain loss and tailings. Downhill sensitivity is going to accelerate or decelerate the system's reaction to the vehicle pitch when you're harvesting downhill, which is going to help maintain your harvested grain cleanliness as well. On the right side, you're going to see your chaffer, sieve, and cleaning fan options too. The cleaning fan is going to indicate the step size used for active terrain adjustment, adjusting that fan speed. As well, you're going to be able to indicate the step size for the chaffer and the step size for the sieve. If we take a look here and click on one of these examples, you're going to see as you select, it's going to let you include this in your automation. If you want to uncheck that, you can exclude your chaffer from your automation if you wish. Here is the set of adjustments that are going to be made automatically. Similarly, you can do this with your sieve and your cleaning fan. Overall, you should now be able to understand how these 4 Combine Advisor systems work together. Through optimizing your performance and setting your combine properly, through Auto Maintain to control your threshing speed, concave clearance, cleaning fan speed, chaffer opening, and sieve opening based on the camera images and grain loss sensor, through your Harvest Smart that's going to control your ground speed based on your rotor target pressure and keep you at a constant feed rate, or your Active Terrain Adjustment that's going to control based on your pitch angle, your cleaning fan speed, chaffer openings, and sieve openings. All in all, our Combine Advisor system works together to automate and make your life easier as you're harvesting in season. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to your precision ag specialists or your salesman, and we'd be happy to answer. There will be a Q&A happening later this week that hopefully we can answer any of your questions in. There is also plenty of videos on YouTube that highlight some of the things that I went over today if you'd like more details and information on the services that we can provide. Thank you.
In this video, Adrian will discuss immediate visual access to harvest settings to improve overall harvesting operations. From your My Operations app, you can make changes to 5 combine settings as the crop and harvesting conditions change throughout the day.
The My Operations app by John Deere provides insights into daily work summaries and field productivity, with the goal of improving logistics and efficiencies through knowledge of current acres worked, fuel levels, and machine performance. The My Operations app provides the opportunity to reflect on current as well as previously completed operations, all on the go from your mobile device. Within the app, we can view each machine's current location, as well as its location history for the past 24 hours, including direction of travel. We can also view machine performance data and get directions to each machine. In this video, we will be looking at the Settings tab as it relates to a feature called Remote View and Adjust. Remote View and Adjust is a feature that allows users the ability to view and adjust an S700 combine setting directly from a mobile device. The 5 combine settings are streamed directly from the Gen 4 4600 command center. The 5 combine settings that are displayed in the My Operations app are concave clearance, threshing speed, cleaning fan speed, chaffer clearance, and sieve clearance. Requirements for remote view and adjust include an S700 series combine, JD Link, premium activation, and the newest software. Also, make sure to update your My Operations app to the latest version. Click on Adjust Settings. Now you can either decrease, or in this case, increase one or any of the 5 settings. Send adjustments and then wait for the operator in the cab to accept the recommendation. Once accepted, the adjustment will be applied to the combine, and then the app will update to show that the adjustment has been completed. Next, I'll show you 2 examples of adjustments that fail and explain why they were unsuccessful. For a remote user to send an adjustment successfully from the My Operations app, there are a few things required of the operator in the cab. The operator must be in the seat, the machine needs to be moving at least 0.5 kilometers an hour, and the machine is in the harvesting state, which means the feeder house is lowered and the header and separator are engaged. The app user will receive an error message on the My Operations app if one of these requirements are not met, or if the adjustment is unsuccessful. If the adjustment is unsuccessful, a red X appears on the adjustment screen. In the first example, the machine was not in the harvesting state. It was still on the edge of the field idling. In this second example, we can see from the error message that the wheel speed was too slow, and therefore the adjustment could not be completed. Let's go inside the cab and see what remote view and adjust looks like for the machine operator. We will be using another feature in the app called RDA, Remote Display Access. Remote Display Access allows the My Operations app user to view the in-cab display on their mobile device in real time. Here we see the Gen 4 4600 display and the 5 combine settings we are attempting to adjust. Once the My Operations app user sends the request to the machine, a message will overlay on the display run page requesting that setting changes are recommended. The operator in the cab will need to confirm these changes on the Gen 4 display before the adjustment can be made. Once accepted, the machine will start to adjust the settings. Let's take another look at the operator accepting the recommendations and then the machine making the changes. The other option for the operator is to reject or decline the recommendations. Once declined, the remote display overlay will disappear and no changes are made. Let's go back to the My Operations app and see what it looks like when the operator in the cab declines the recommended remote adjustments. Here, the app user attempts to adjust the settings. The request is sent to the combine. The request overlay will now be displayed in the cab, and the operator declines the adjustment. Here we get the notification that the adjustment failed because the operator rejected the adjustment request. Because the request was unsuccessful, a red X appears on the app adjustment screen. Let's review. The combine is in the harvesting state, operator is in the seat and the machine moving forward with the feeder house lowered and the header and separator engaged. The My Operation app user sends a remote view and adjust request to the machine. We wait for the operator to accept the remote request, and then once successful, a green check mark will appear on the adjustment screen.
In this video, Caleb will explain to us how to change layers in a Gen 4 display.
In this video, we're going to be talking about how to change map layers that you're looking at from blue coverage to different layers available on the Gen 4 display. So the first place you're going to need to go is on your home page. You just need to click on one of the map icons. If you don't have a map icon on your home page for guidance, you can go into menu, you can go into applications on the left hand side, and then you can scroll down until you find mapping. In mapping, it'll bring up this smaller window. You can click on that, and this was the window you'll be in. So in the bottom left hand side, you'll have these 3 dots and lines. You'll click on this button. This allows you to see what the legend for that map is. So if you have a single machine in the field, you'll have blue coverage, and if you have and then when you go over your own coverage, you'll have overlap. The other option is if you have multiple machines in the field, you'll show the other machine's coverage is blue, and then darker, like a different color blue for their overlap for coverage. The other options, instead of just looking at a blue map to see where people have been, is you can click on this white tab, these white boxes right here, go into this menu, and you can pick a different layer to view instead of coverage. So coverage is just blue. You could also view moisture or dry yield layers. We can click on dry yield, go back to our home page, and now when we view the entire map and zoom out, we can see our entire yield instead, and we can see the yield and how it yielded. But we notice that there's a lot of red streaks in the field. So we'll want to go back into that menu button in the bottom left, and we want to change our legend. So we know that we had some spots that we went down low enough that we want this to be 10 bushels and this to be 110 bushels. We can change these numbers to anything that we want according to what crop we're in. If you're in a crop that's lower yielding, you could have it at 0 bushels to 40, or a higher yielding crop like corn, you could start out at 100 and go to 200. We can click OK, and now our map gives us a better representation of what the yield was throughout that field. So the other option is you also get to see in a Gen 4 the yield from other machines being shared in the same field as well. Their yield will show up on your display, which allows you to view and see if they have a setting different than on their combine, what they're yielding, or if they might have forgotten to change settings from a different crop type. You can view out of your display what they're getting for yield, and if their yield is much lower because they haven't switched crops, then it might be a way for you to look at the job that they're doing while they're doing it. The other option with these layers is if you wanted to just cycle through the layers, there's this button above the other button. You can click on this and it'll cycle between coverage, moisture, and dry yield. And this allows us, you can just cycle through all the different layers. Our moisture map is quite off for moisture, so we're going to put this at 1%, and the top is going to be at 12%. This gives us the same kind of issue. We have the same similar green map, so we need it to be new work, we need it to be the legend, and we need to make this maybe 5% to 12%. This gives us a better representation of how the moisture changed throughout the field, and also we can then change. This gives us a good understanding of how our coverage looks moving through the field. The other point to note is on this, we can scroll through and go to our dry yield. When you start combining, the map behind you will be gray because it has to load the combining info on it takes a second for it to load the map. So here you can see it's starting to fill in color behind us. So you need to wait while you're combining to be able to view the different colors. It does only change whenever it sees a change in yield for a long enough period of time to justify it showing a different color, so it won't immediately blip just because there's a small point. and it will only change, it does lag behind the combine. So if you have the view zoomed in too much, you might not actually get to be able to see what your yield is unless you go to a whole map picture. So if you're zoomed in too much on your combine, you won't be able to see the changes in the yield behind you and view the map unless you go in the top left-hand side to an entire view of the boundaried field. You'll be able to see the whole field and the yield as you go.
In this video, Joe will show us how to view other map layers on a 2630 display.
All you need to do is go to your setup, your GS3, mapping, map setting, and as you see, it's showing coverage only, which is default. You can change that to either flags, moisture, or yield. So in this case, we're going to change it to yield. Hit accept, and here we have our settings. To the left, we can toggle back and forth coverage and yield. We can add a bottom and top value where we want how we want it to read. We can switch this, let's say, to 185 at the bottom end. Engage our separator and header. Hit fast idle. Take the parking brake off. Push the hydro handle ahead. Start moving. Here, engage the auto track. And the way we are showing yield instead of coverage. We'll speed up a little bit. It's obviously showing low yield, so like I was saying before, it's reading 0 here, your instant yield, and that's the reason it's showing purple. It really should be what the simulator is reading. It should be reading green here. But quick and easy way to switch it. We can go switch it back at any time, toggle it back and forth, whatever we want to see.
In this video, Joe will explain how and when to use overlap control in a 2630 display.
I want to talk a little bit about overlap control on a 2630 display. Where overlap control is beneficial is when you're finishing up a field and you only have half a header width left to combine. Without overlap control, your yield will show very low due to a narrow cut. Overlap control will compensate for this. Keep in mind, if you have multiple combines in the same field, it only works if you have data sharing or machine sync. Let's see how we can set this up. We go to setup, and then we go to GS3, equipment, header, and here's your overlap control checkbox. We check it off. Go back to the home page. Now we can start combining. We engage the separator and the header. Go to high idle. Take the park brake off, or it's not going to move. We start moving. Turn the auto steer on. And hit our resume switch. And away we go. We're going to turn around and we're going to overlap a bit of what we cut now. So we're only, instead of cutting 12 rows, we'll maybe go down to a few less. How many is hard to say. Depends how it works out. So we're going to slow down a little bit. Turn around. And then we're going to turn. So here we're overlapping pretty good. We'll center the line here and resume. Hit resume on the auto steer. And I'm going to probably speed up a little bit now. Better speed up a little more, there's rain coming. So now it doesn't show you exactly, but like I say, there's no instant dry or wet yield, but it is the accurate data that's coming in now, where if without overlap control, it would show really low yield on this last pass. So we'll shut things down, and that's the end of this video.